Verses 6 to 10. Peter and John go with all speed to the sepulchre, to satisfy themselves of the truth of what was told them, and to see if they could make any further discoveries. v. 4. Some think that the other disciples were with Peter and John when the news came, for they told these things to the 11, Lu 24:9. Others think that Mary Magdalene told her story only to Peter and John, and that the other women told theirs to the other disciples, yet none of them went to the sepulchre but Peter and John, who were two of the first three of Christ's disciples, often distinguished from the rest by special favors. Note, it is well when those that are more honored than others with the privileges of disciples are more active than others in the duty of disciples, more willing to take pains and run hazards in a good work. See here what use we should make of the experience and observations of others. When Mary told them what she had seen, they would not in this sense take her word, but would go and see with their own eyes. Do others tell us of the comfort and benefit of ordinances? Let us be engaged thereby to make trial of them. Come and see how good it is to draw near to God. See how ready we should be to share with our friends in their cares and fears. Peter and John hastened to the sepulchre, that they might be able to give Mary a satisfactory answer to her jealousies. We should not grudge any pains we take for the succoring and comforting of the weak and timorous followers of Christ. See what haste we should make in a good work, and when we are going on a good errand. Peter and John consulted neither their ease nor their gravity, but ran to the sepulchre, that they might show the strength of their zeal and affection, and might lose no time. If we are in the way of God's commandments, we should run in that way. See what a good thing it is to have good company in a good work. Perhaps neither of these disciples would have ventured to the sepulchre alone, but, being both together, they made no difficulty of it. See Eccle 4:9. See what a laudable emulation it is among disciples to strive which shall excel, which shall exceed, in that which is good. It was no breach of ill manners for John, though the younger, to outrun Peter, and get before him. We must do our best, and neither envy those that can do better, nor despise those that do as they can, though they come behind. He that got foremost in this race is the disciple whom Jesus loved in a special manner, and who therefore in a special manner loved Jesus. Note, sense of Christ's love to us, kindling love in us to him again, will make us to excel in virtue. The love of Christ will constrain us more than anything to abound in duty. He that was cast behind was Peter, who had denied his master, and was in sorrow and shame for it, and this clogged him as a weight. Sense of guilt cramps us, and hinders our enlargement in the service of God. When conscience is offended we lose ground. Peter and John, having come to the sepulchre, prosecute the inquiry, yet improve little in the discovery. John went no further than Mary Magdalene had done. He had the curiosity to look into the sepulchre, and saw it was empty. He stooped down, and looked in. Those that would find the knowledge of Christ must stoop down, and look in, must with a humble heart submit to the authority of divine revelation, and must look wistly. Yet he had not courage to go into the sepulchre. The warmest affections are not always accompanied with the boldest resolutions. Many are swift to run religion's race that are not stout to fight her battles. Peter, though he came last, went in first, and made a more exact discovery than John had done. v. 6:7. Though John outran him, he did not therefore turn back, nor stand still, but made after him as fast as he could, and, while John was with much caution looking in, he came, and with great courage went into the sepulchre. Observe here the boldness of Peter, and how God dispenses his gifts variously. John could outrun Peter, but Peter could outdare John. It is seldom true of the same persons, what David says poetically of Saul and Jonathan, that they were swifter than eagles, and yet stronger than lions. 2 Sa. 123. Some disciples are quick, and they are useful to quicken those that are slow, others are bold, and they are useful to embolden those that are timorous. Diversity of gifts, but one Spirit. Peter's venturing into the sepulchre may teach us that those who in good earnest seek after Christ must not frighten themselves with bugbears and foolish fancies. There is a lion in the way, a ghost in the grave. that good Christians need not be afraid of the grave, since Christ has lain in it, for to them there is nothing in it frightful, it is not the pit of destruction, nor are the worms in it never-dying worms. Let us therefore not indulge, but conquer, the fear we are apt to conceive upon the sight of a dead body, or being alone among the graves, and, since we must be dead and in the grave shortly, let us make death and the grave familiar to us, as our near kindred. Job 17:14. We must be willing to go through the grave to Christ, that way he went to his glory, and so must we. If we cannot see God's face and live, better die than never see it. See Job 19:25, etc. Observe the posture in which he found things in the sepulchre. Christ had left his grave clothes behind him there. What clothes he appeared into his disciples we are not told, but he never appeared in his grave clothes, as ghosts are supposed to do. No, he laid them aside, first, because he arose to die no more, death was to have no more dominion over him. Rom 6:9. Lazarus came out with his grave clothes on, for he was to use them again, but Christ, rising to an immortal life, came out free from those encumbrances. Secondly, because he was going to be clothed with the robes of glory, therefore he lays aside these rags. In the heavenly paradise there will be no more occasion for clothes than there was in the earthly. The ascending prophet dropped his mantle. Thirdly, when we arise from the death of sin to the life of righteousness, we must leave our grave clothes behind us, must put off all our corruptions. Fourthly, Christ left those in the grave, as it were, for our use if the grave be a bed to the saints, thus he hath sheeted that bed, and made it ready for them, and the napkin by itself is of use for the mourning survivors to wipe away their tears. The grave clothes were found in very good order, which serves for an evidence that his body was not stolen away while men slept. Robbers of tombs have been known to take away the clothes and leave the body, but none prior to the practices of modern resurrectionists ever took away the body and left the clothes, especially when it was fine linen and new. Mk 1546. Anyone would rather choose to carry a dead body in its clothes than naked. Or, if those that were supposed to have stolen it would have left the grave clothes behind, yet it cannot be supposed they should find leisure to fold up the linen. See how Peter's boldness encouraged John. Now he took heart and ventured in. V8, and he saw and believed, not barely believed what Mary said, that the body was gone, no thanks to him to believe what he saw, but he began to believe that Jesus was risen to life again, though his faith, as yet, was weak and wavering. John followed Peter in venturing. It should seem, he durst not have gone into the sepulchre if Peter had not gone in first. Note, it is good to be emboldened in a good work by the boldness of others. The dread of difficulty and danger will be taken off by observing the resolution and courage of others. Perhaps John's quickness had made Peter run faster, and now Peter's boldness makes John venture further, than otherwise either the one or the other would have done, though Peter had lately fallen under the disgrace of being a deserter, and John had been advanced to the honor of a confidant, Christ having committed his mother to him, yet John not only associated with Peter, but thought it no disparagement to follow him. Yet, it should seem, John got the start of Peter in believing. Peter saw and wondered, Lu 24:12, but John saw and believed. A mind disposed to contemplation may perhaps sooner receive the evidence of divine truth than a mind disposed to action. But what was the reason that they were so slow of heart to believe? The evangelist tells us, v9, as yet they knew not the scripture, that is, they did not consider and apply and duly improve what they knew of the scripture, that he must rise again from the dead. The Old Testament spoke of the resurrection of the Messiah, they believed him to be the Messiah, he himself had often told them that, according to the scriptures of the Old Testament, he should rise again, but they had not presence of mind sufficient by these to explain the present appearances. Observe here, first, how unapt the disciples themselves were, at first, to believe the resurrection of Christ, which confirms the testimony they afterwards gave with so much assurance concerning it, for, by their backwardness to believe it, it appears that they were not credulous concerning it, nor of those simple ones that believe every word. If they had had any design to advance their own interest by it, they would greedily have caught at the first spark of its evidence, would have raised and supported one another's expectations of it, and have prepared the minds of those that followed them to receive the notices of it. But we find, on the contrary, that their hopes were frustrated. It was to them as a strange thing, and one of the furthest things from their thoughts. Peter and John were so shy of believing it at first that nothing less than the most convincing proof the thing was capable of could bring them to testify it afterwards with so much assurance. Hereby it appears that they were not only honest men, who would not deceive others, but cautious men, who would not themselves be imposed upon. Secondly, what was the reason of their slowness to believe? Because as yet they knew not the Scripture. This seems to be the evangelist's acknowledgement of his own fault among the rest. He does not say, "For as yet Jesus had not appeared to them, had not shown them his hands and his side," but, "As yet he had not opened their understandings to understand the Scripture." Lu 24:44, 45, for that is the most sure word of prophecy. Peter and John pursued their inquiry no further, but desisted, hovering between faith and unbelief. v10 The disciples went away, not much the wiser, to their own home, pros hetus to their own friends and companions, the rest of the disciples to their own lodgings, for homes they had none at Jerusalem. They went away for fear of being taken up upon suspicion of a design to steal away the body, or of being charged with it now that it was gone. Instead of improving their faith, their care is to secure themselves, to shift for their own safety. In difficult, dangerous times it is hard even for good men to go on in their work with the resolution that becomes them. Because they were at a loss, and knew not what to do next, nor what to make of what they had seen, and therefore, not having courage to stay at the grave, they resolved to go home, and wait till God shall reveal even this unto them, which is an instance of their weakness as yet. It is probable that the rest of the disciples were together. To them they return, to make report of what they had discovered and to consult with them what was to be done, and, probably, now they appointed their meeting in the evening, when Christ came to them. It is observable that before Peter and John came to the sepulchre an angel had appeared there, rolled away the stone, frightened the guard, and comforted the women. As soon as they were gone from the sepulchre, Mary Magdalene here sees two angels in the sepulchre, v12, and yet Peter and John come to the sepulchre, and go into it, and see none. What shall we make of this? Where were the angels when Peter and John were at the sepulchre, who appeared there before and after? Angels appear and disappear at pleasure, according to the orders and instructions given them. They may be, and are really, where they are not visibly, nay, it should seem, may be visible to one and not to another, at the same time. Number 22-23, 2 key. 6:17. How they make themselves visible, then invisible, and then visible again, it is presumption for us to inquire, but that they do so is plain from this story. This favor was shown to those who were early and constant in their inquiries after Christ, and was the reward of those that came first and stayed last, but denied to those that made a transient visit. The apostles were not to receive their instructions from the angels, but from the Spirit of grace. See Hebrew 2:5.